Hello and welcome to the FI Newscast, where we bring you relevant news in the food and beverage industry. I'm Susan Choi, and I thank you for watching. Today is Friday, June 2nd, 2023. We have a great show for you today. Our special guest is John Saxon, Chief of Staff of the Howard Hughes Corporation, a residential and commercial real estate development company. And we were able to get insights from John on real estate and its synergy with and impact on the food world. We can't wait to share the footage with you on that, but first, we'll cover some of the top stories from this week so far. We start with some reports in the earnings space. In food manufacturing news, Hormel reported weaker than expected Q2 results, but the food service segment was a bright spot for the company, with value-added meat products such as sliced meats and pizza toppings gaining higher profit margins than the retail segment. CEO Jim Snee said that he expects sales and earnings growth in the back half of the year. And in food retail, Dollar General also reported lower than expected financial results. Same-store sales came in at just under 2%, leading the company to lower its annual net sales growth estimate to a range of about 3.5% to 5%. CEO Jeff Owen pointed to the challenging macroeconomic environment and weaker spending patterns of its core customers. Dollar General's news comes on the heels of results reported by its competitor Dollar Tree. They also reported low earnings results, and its full-year profit outlook was lowered as well due to elevated shrink in product mix, shifting to lower margin consumable products. Over in the food service sector, all eyes are on sales trends in summer dining. Market research firm Data Central reported that based on its latest survey on dining trends, a third of consumers are expecting to dine out less over the next month, whereas half expect to maintain their current level of restaurant spending. The results indicate that inflation is still weighing on the minds and wallets of consumers. The National Restaurant Association, in contrast, issued a more optimistic forecast, saying that hiring at bars and eateries are robust, with expectations that 500,000 jobs will likely be added this summer. Job growth in the sector could be a leading indicator of restaurant sales growth. The Food Institute will definitely be keeping a close eye on those numbers. In government news, some potential legislation that's sure to impact the food industry. California and New York have both proposed bills banning foods that contain certain additives linked to health concerns. Several organizations are raising awareness that certain chemicals found in candy, sodas, and baked goods have been linked to cancer, neurodevelopmental issues, and hormone dysfunction. New York is also going one step further into the realm of alcohol. The state is aiming to change outdated laws surrounding alcohol sales, such as permitting grocery stores to sell wine and liquor stores to open before noon on Sundays. But liquor lobbyists are pushing back. They want to maintain the status quo, and industry insiders fear that any changes to the current system of regulations will affect their flow of business. Over in food tech, fast food joints want to make sure your food is hot and ready to eat right when you arrive. McDonald's and Chick-fil-A mobile apps are developing methods to use location data in order to accurately time the cooking of takeout orders. It's a technique called geofencing, and the idea is to anticipate the customer's arrival so that there is no waiting around for food. The order will be ready right at the time of pickup. McDonald's is still working on the service, but Chick-fil-A plans to launch theirs this summer. Looks like this development is a step in the right direction, as McDonald's digital sales made up 40% of total sales in the first quarter of 2023. And finally, Panda Express is aiming to make some serious headway in the classroom. The Chinese takeout empire recently announced that they have partnered with the University of Pennsylvania's Asian American Studies program to present the Panda Express Postdoctoral Fellowship. It's a one-year offering with a $65,000 grant that enables students to, quote, teach, plan, and grow within UPenn's Asian American Studies program. The university says that this new initiative will secure 5 positions over the next 3 years. And those are your top stories. We're going to turn now to the main event. John Saxon, Chief of Staff at the Howard Hughes Corporation, got to talk to the Food Institute's CEO and Managing Partner, Brian Choi, while they were at one of the corporation's leading portfolio properties, Pier 17 in Manhattan, which includes the Seaport and the Tin Building. They were talking about everything from company strategies to food service within large-scale real estate projects to collaborating with major brands and notable figures. That's all coming up right now. Let's take a look.
Howard Hughes, in terms of as a company, and you mentioned master plan communities, tell us a little bit more about sort of the regions where you guys develop, and also we're here in New York City, what this particular region, what it means, and how it might be different from some of the other communities around the U.S.
Yeah, so all of our regions are traditional MPCs, which are, the thousands of acres that I've talked about. They're mostly concentrated in Houston, where we have 3 master plan communities, the Woodlands that I mentioned, the Woodland Hills, and Bridgeland, which is in West Houston. And then outside of Las Vegas, 7 miles off the Strip, we have 22,000 acres in a community called Summerlin. And then more recently, we acquired 37,000 acres outside of Phoenix. So we're positioned all around there. Those are some of our traditional master plan communities. We also have condos that we develop in Oahu, on the island of Oahu in Hawaii, and Columbia, Maryland. And so we're really scattered all around, but what we do is we build communities, and the structure of the business is to segment residential and commercial. And so we take large swaths of land and we segment what the residential component will be. And we take land and we sell it to home builders. They build homes, and that brings residents into the community. And then that sparks demand for commercial. So we use the proceeds from the land sales as our equity contribution for commercial development. And we build office and retail, even medical office buildings, and a variety of different assets. That sparks demand for people to come into the community, so the residential side then fires up again, and it creates this, what we call a virtuous cycle of value creation.
Right.
The Seaport is a unique asset, but it ties into our portfolio because we're building a community here at the Seaport. It's a historic Manhattan neighborhood, and so what we're doing is we're revitalizing this place. Pier 17, where we're at now, and it's a mixed-use asset with restaurants on the bottom. We have office with our tenants, like Nike's design studio, ESPN films hours of broadcast here every day, and then we have a rooftop where we right now have our summer concert series going on. And then the Tin building behind us, we're going to head to in a minute. Really unique asset just by itself, 53,000 square feet, over 20 restaurant experiences. So creating or enhancing the vibrancy of this neighborhood is really what it's all about. So, we're excited with what we've been able to do so far and where we're heading.
Question for you in terms of what makes an MPC successful. So you mentioned getting the residential folks in and inviting sort of the commercial tenants. Can you delve a little bit more into what really makes a community as vibrant as what you typically see at in the Howard Hughes development?
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, people want a better quality of life, and that's what we've seen coming out of the pandemic. And you hear this exodus of people leaving these coastal states and coming to the Sun Belt, and that's where we have a lot of our communities, and we've experienced a lot of success over the last few years because we do provide that quality of life, and we provide a place where people can live, work, and play. And a lot of developers use that term, live, work, and play, but it really is something that we truly do deliver, and we do it over a period of decades. So I guess the longevity is what sets Howard Hughes apart, because to build something that takes 50 plus years to do, you have to do it right, from the beginning to the end. And we repeat this process over and over and over, and that's really the uniqueness that I would say. And part of that goes into thinking about not just where the residential housing goes or the commercial development goes, because that's where we make our profits, but also thinking about where the parks go. Where's that next trail system going to go? We have a ton of acres that are just dedicated to open green space.
Right.
And so it's just as much art as it is science.
Wow. And tell us a little bit about the importance of food when it comes to these communities. Like we're here at a beautiful restaurant here. I know you have Jean-Georges, at the Tin building. What role does food play in building up the community and also the ultimate success of that community?
Yeah, so restaurants, it ties the whole community together. And what we've seen, especially over the last few years, is more of a shift in the consumer and where they're spending. So they're spending more on experience these days and not as much on items. And they want to be surrounded by family and friends and have a memorable moment. And so when we bring restaurants into our community, we don't just want to bring a place where people can eat, but where they can have that experience. And so each of our communities, it kind of has its own personality and own identity. So all of our restaurants are tailored to that community so that when people go there, they can have that unique experience. I think the Tin Building is a good example, bringing food into a community and how you can have a lot of different concepts but still make it work all together. Mm-hmm. So the Tin Building has over 21 to be specific, 21 dining offerings.
Wow.
A lot of different flavors under one roof, but we worked in partnership with Jean-Georges, renowned New York City chef.
Right.
Spending years making sure that we had the right product and the right offerings to where it is all tied together. And in doing that, we have a taste for everybody's palate.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll have more with John Saxon of the Howard Hughes Corporation when we come back. Stay with us. We are back and we'll get right into part 2 of our special interview with John Saxon, Chief of Staff of the Howard Hughes Corporation. Let's take a look.
And so we're here at a beautiful restaurant. You talk about experience. Mm-hmm. Just walking into this restaurant, you see just the beauty, just how everything is elegantly put together. And so one of the key areas that we talk about at the Food Institute is kind of the food service strategy of organizations. So talk to us a little bit about how Howard Hughes thought about the design of this restaurant as it relates to bringing in different sort of operators and what sort of trends that you're seeing in the marketplace when it comes to food and restaurants.
Yeah, so this restaurant in particular, Seeds and Weeds, it's a fully vegan concept. So if you're familiar with Jean-Georges and his restaurants, one of his staples is ABC and then ABCV. So this is more of a fast casual concept spin to that. And so it's one of those unique offerings that we have here. So you've got vegan, vegetarian right out the door. You have a nice bar, and then a pizza place, Frenchman's Dough. So you can get pizza and pastas, and then across the way we have a taco stand, and then next to that we have an Asian fusion restaurant. Wow. And then right next to that we have a film studio where people who are cooking, you can have a production, you can have media come in there, and then when it's not being used, then it's a private dining hall for companies or for anyone who wants to have an event. So it's a little bit of mix of everything where you can walk through and hit all of these spots. Right behind us we have a bunch of olive oils and things that you would use to cook. And there's private label, Tin Building, Jean-Georges olive oils that you can buy, and that's scattered throughout. So you can come here and have a meal. You can come and pick up some of your groceries and some of the ingredients that you want to cook back at home.
Yeah, I find that strategy really fascinating because, as you know, the food service industry really got impacted during COVID, right? And as you know, restaurant margins are already thin as they are, but to think about other sort of revenue streams that you mentioned, kind of like the olive oil branded Tin Building and Jean-Georges, that seems to be a new growth area for a lot of these restaurant concepts. So talk to us a little bit about kind of the thought process around that. Was that, how do you see that sort of branded food products as part of the overall growth strategy, for Howard Hughes?
Yeah, so I think that's one segment where it could be a potential revenue stream that we could grow over time. So the private label products, certainly some expansion area into that, and so it's kind of refining, what do you want those products to be? Is there an opportunity to sort of mass produce that? And the tin building, it's pretty new. We opened it late last year, so we're tracking all the data and seeing what works, what people want. I think that's a big part of all this, is tracking the consumer, seeing what piques their interest, and capitalizing on that. I think we've been able to work with Jean-Georges over the years because we've had a partnership, like I mentioned earlier, but last year we had the opportunity to expand that partnership. So we invested $45 million for a 25% stake in Jean-Georges restaurants, and the reason in doing that is because we've had a great partnership already, and now we have the opportunity to expand the concepts into our master plan community. So not just the Seaport, but into potentially the Woodlands and into Summerlin. And so building on all of that and forming that partnership, we'll have this great bond, and we'll elevate together.
In terms of sort of like the cuisines and dishes and things that what you're seeing across sort of the various communities, how would you characterize the interest level in, let's say, Mexican cuisine versus kind of Asian cuisine, Japanese, and tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of the growth areas as it relates to specific types of cuisines.
So it's an interesting question, and I would say that it's interesting because when we look at not just the Seaport, but really all of our communities and the restaurants that we have there, I probably sound like a broken record at this point because we want to have variety, we want to have something for everybody. And so the trends, it's hard to pick out one particular trend, one cuisine or one dish, because each of those communities has its own personality and its own identity. And so what may be popular in Summerlin would be different in New York, would be different in Bridgeland. But what we like to do is kind of cast a wide net, so that someone can go, and if they want to have a casual meal, at a Mexican restaurant, they can do that, and if they want to have a steak, they can go in and they can do that as well.
One of the things I've noticed, particularly around that Gen Z kind of millennial, is just a gravitation towards kind of plant-based and vegan. So we're sitting here at a vegan restaurant. So talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing from that standpoint of that movement towards sustainability, eating more vegetables, whether that's because of health or animal welfare. Tell us a little bit what you're seeing there.
Yeah, the health and wellness is huge,
right.
And so you do see more of kind of the vegan concepts, but also just using fresh ingredients and farm to table. And we've seen a lot of attraction towards that, and we see it here at the Seaport with our restaurants. I mean, there's a very strong focus on providing the best quality meal that people want to eat, and we see that throughout our portfolio in some of the restaurants and some of the tenants that we've been able to bring in. So if you think about Howard Hughes, we own the real estate, so we're the landlord. So on the retail side, we own 3 million square feet. A decent portion of that are the restaurants. So to bring in those restaurants that are going to provide the food that people want to eat, it's crucial. So as the consumer's palate is shifting towards that better quality health and wellness, we've seen that shake out in our tenant mix, and so that just goes to show that we're adapting to that change.
All right, that was the Food Institute's own CEO and managing partner, Brian Choi, getting the answers from John Saxon, Chief of Staff of the Howard Hughes Corporation. Our thanks to both of them for a great interview. And that was just a snippet of the interview we captured on film. Please be on the lookout for the full-length version with a whole lot more insights coming soon to our website, foodinstitute.com, and our social media platforms. Before we go, we're going to take a look at what's coming up in the food industry in the coming days. On June 6th, we're going to have a special episode of FI Live featuring Pod Foods, a company seeking to disrupt the grocery supply chain. Don't want to miss that. And also on June 6th, we'll see earnings releases for the J.M. Smucker Co. and Cracker Barrel Old Country Store, Inc. On June 7th is FI Seminar on Food Manufacturing, featuring guests from Cone Resnick, Dr. Pragers, and Swander Pace Capital. And also on June 7th are more earnings releases for United Natural Foods, Inc. and Campbell's Soup Company. And that's our show. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Susan Choi, and I want you to tune in next week, same time, same place, because we will have a great guest, Andrew Gellert, president of the Gellert Global Group, one of the largest specialty food importers in the U.S. Mark your calendars for that. I also want to remind you to show us some love on social media. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channels. The support really makes a difference for us. Thanks again for watching. Have a great weekend and take care.